The ABA's first game between the Oakland Oaks and Anaheim Amigos was played on October 13th, 1967. Fittingly, it was Friday the 13th. The league got off to a rambunctious start. Play was rough and ragged, but some who rose above it were Pittsburgh's Chico Vaughn, Red Robins of New Orleans, and the infamous Laverne Jelly Tart. The ABA's first champions were the Pittsburgh Pipers, and the MVP was Connie Hawkins. For years, everyone had heard about Hawkins' great talent. Now the ABA had given him a national stage. Unfortunately, while the Hawks soared, attendance did not. In its first few seasons, the ABA averaged little more than 3,000 fans a game.
There was a bunch of people disguised as empty seats. But I think for the most part, the attitude for the people there was that it wasn't an NBA franchise. They're not NBA ball players, so they're inferior ball players.
I had played in the NBA for a while with the Knicks, and I'd gotten cut, and I had a taste of the big time. And while the ABA wasn't exactly all peaches and cream the first year.
Players would stand there during the national anthem and actually count the people. I know one night in Memphis, there were 58 people in the stands.
And in New Orleans, we had a really good hardcore group of fans of about 100.
28 people. There were 28 people at a game. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You don't think it takes a lot of personal pride to want to go out and give your best effort with 28 people. Why, there are more people on the bench and at the scorer's table than there were in the stands. What am I doing here? I mean, this is like, this is unbelievable.
In Memphis once, there was a great basketball player, Johnny Newman, University of Mississippi. They signed him, and part of his deal was he got 5,000 tickets a game. 5,000 tickets a game. He couldn't give them away. He would go to the barbershop and say, if you'll give me a haircut, I'll give you a ticket. He would leave them as tips in coffee shops. I always remember in Pittsburgh, they brought Muhammad Ali in for an exhibition with 4 local fighters. And that was before the game. They set up the ring at the end of the basketball court. There were about 8,000 or 9,000 people who came to watch Muhammad Ali. He got through, everybody got up and left. When the teams came out to play, there were about 500 people left in the arena. And the PR director said he made a major mistake of not locking the doors after the fight.
For the most part, fan support didn't improve over time.
One night against San Antonio, we announced a crowd of 806. And I sat there during halftime, and I started counting the people in the stands. And my best guess was that there were really about 400 people at the game. And I went up to Rudy Martzke, who then was the Spirits Director of Operations, and I said, Rudy, you know, it's bad enough we got an announced crowd of about 800. There's really like 400 people here. He says, you know, you little wise ass, why don't you just go back over there and broadcast the game and mind your own business? Did it ever occur to you that maybe some of these people are in the restroom or at the concession stand? I said, Rudy, let's test your premise. Let's suppose there were 10,000 people here. What are the odds that at any given moment, 5,000 of them are relieving themselves or buying a hot dog? There's no chance of that. There's 400 people here. He said, I'm going to belch you. Get out of here.
Part of the ABA's problem was the condition, size, and availability of the league's arenas. In many cities, ABA games weren't given top priority. Some teams had 2 or 3 home courts. There were even games played in front of high school bands, glorified high school gyms. Life in the early days of the ABA wasn't exactly the big time.
Miami one year, they played in a hangar out by the pier, and if it was really hot and muggy, they would open one end of the hangar, and air would come. I mean, it would change the trajectory of the ball when a guy's shooting if the wind's blowing. And one night it was raining, and it's raining on one end of the court. They got to stop the game and close the doors.
I remember one time playing down in Miami. We had the referee mad, and there was a timeout, and he slammed the ball down on the floor like referees do, and was standing there waiting for the timeout to be over. And he reached down to pick up the ball, and it had rolled all the way down the floor. That floor was tilted down there, you know.
The biggest shock I had as far as an arena was concerned was the first year of the ABA in 1967. We went to New York. We traveled across the George Washington Bridge to Teaneck, New Jersey, to play in the Old Armory.
At timeouts, they would bring a mallet out and hammer the end of the floor. to get the boards back in place between plays.
And then later we went over to Comac, and it was an ice skating arena.
We went out to play, and the ball boy came in and said, the temperature on the floor is 10 degrees.
There was a complete sheet of ice on the top of the floor. And we went out there and we actually played on it, and we were actually dribbling the ball, sliding. Somebody would go take a layup, they would slide a good 10 feet, like this here, just slide before they take the shot.
We got $10 a day on the road. We didn't have a trainer travel with us. I learned to tape myself. You washed your own uniforms. Jimmy Jones asked for a jock strap, and the guy told him, well, I gave you 2 earlier in the year.
Rudy Martzke's a columnist for USA Today. He was one of the original PR men for the Miami Floridians or something, and I think he saw the handwriting on the wall when he came back to work one day and they'd sold all his furniture. I mean, his office was gone because they needed the money.
Bob Bass, the coach and general manager, said to me, hey, Rudy, before you get started today, clean out your desk. And I said, clean out my desk? What? He says, well, yeah, look, I sold it. I said, really? He says, yeah, look, and by the way, he's also going to be up here about 11 a.m. If you can help him carry it to his new office, too, okay? And the guy comes up, he's kind of shaggy-haired and beard and all sorts of stuff. So there I am, help him carry the desk into the elevator, down the floor, into his office. And that night, I got home, and I'm watching the news, and all of a sudden I noticed, there's the guy. It's Jerry Rubin from the Chicago 7. This was the 1972 Democratic Convention in Miami Beach, and here he is from the Chicago 7. My desk got sold to Jerry Rubin.
Typical of the ABA, even teams that won, lost. For Pat Boone, the excitement of his Oakland Oaks winning the league championship was balanced by the reality of his bank book.
I want to show this to Elizabeth Taylor because she's got some very nice jewelry, but she doesn't have a ring that costs $2.5 million. Now this ring, this Oakland Oaks championship ring, cost me $2.5 million hard, cold bucks, and I got to go to 10 games. Now you've heard of scalping. Nobody ever got scalped to the tune of $250,000 a game.
The ABA's signature was its colorful red, white, and blue ball. It was innovative and unique to the league, as was another ABA curiosity, the three-point shot. Although both creations were criticized by the basketball establishment, they gave the league instant personality.
Identification, something different, something unusual, something that people could put their teeth into. When we first talked about it, there was some very strong opposition to it. You had people in the league who were the traditionalists.
Of course, the reaction from the traditionalists was they were aghast.
I'm an old-timer, and I'm sort of against the ball because I think it detracts from the game to a certain degree.
I said, that is the worst-looking ball I've ever seen. It'll make us a total laughingstock.
People kept kidding it about it being a beach ball.
And suggested that they ought to have a seal so it could be on the seal's nose.
Players would come in and they'd pick up the ball and they'd say, the ball is too heavy. Another player would pick the ball up and say, the ball's too light. Another player would say, the ball's been painted and it slips on my fingers.
When we first put it into effect, coming off of the presses and that, it was slippery.
Couldn't handle the ball. I mean, it was brand new, but they had problems with the dive. It was just too slick to handle. There was all kinds of dropping and slippage of the ball and a lot of complaining.
I remember the first time they brought it out, guys would pass it, and you would hold your hands out, and the ball would hit you in the face because you were used to watching it spin all the time.
It was the first exhibition game that the Dallas franchise played against the New Orleans Bucks. Just before game time, we had received a shipment of the red, white, and blue ABA basketballs, and the first ones, they were a little bit off. And the ball was very lively, and it bounced off the rim and the backboard, and for 10 minutes, there was no score in the game.
It really threw me for a loop. It took me close to half a season to focus back on my regular game. Every time I shot that basketball, I was watching that ball in flight and thinking, oh, what pretty colors.